relation to the conference in Cork in April, you're saying in particular that you finding great success with adults and teen struggling with autism. What would they get from your talk?
What I'm finding when I'm working with people on the spectrum is just that their anxiety reduces enormously. When you can reduce your anxiety and bring your body state down, everything's easier. It's easier to think straight. It's easier to access your feelings and you're articulating. And what I do is I explain the science behind that as well as give practical exercises.
And is this something for anyone that's dealing with anxiety, or is it in particular just for people with autism, or would it spread out to, say, people who would have DCD as well? Do you know, it applies to a whole lot of people. I work with quite a range of people now, and it's very, very efficient. So the workshop itself is tiered more towards autism, but anxiety in general, yes, it's extremely interesting and very useful. And often what I say is when I go through all of this stuff, it's to do with the vagus nerve and how your social system shuts down when you're anxious. People just go, oh my God, that makes so much sense. You know, it's not rocket science, but we've just forgotten to think like this, and we haven't tiered our therapies appropriately. And it's actually very simple, and it's very gentle and kind. And in terms of the autism stuff, people have for, 100 or so years now been really bossed around like they're a bit stupid. And people on the spectrum are very, very intelligent, but they need to be treated delicately and with respect until they get their system a bit more robust. What do you think of how autism is addressed in Irish schools, or would you know much about that?
I know a little because I came last year into the workshop with the guys at pcpsi. I think from what I can gather, people in Ireland are just learning what to do with it. And so, as I sort of said before, there's a way in which they want to apply the evidence-based practice, which is ABA, Applied Behaviour Analysis, but it's so vehemently disliked by the autistic community at large internationally. And so we really have to embrace that and start looking at how we can work with people to appreciate their neurodiversity, appreciate that they have a wonderfully different way of thinking, but also address the many comorbid issues that come with autism, like anxiety, depression, a whole range of things that really debilitate people on the spectrum.
Is it worse for a teenager with autism or on the spectrum in that they're also dealing with hormones and general pressures to fit in or whatever amongst their peers?
I think it's a lot harder as people get older. You can kind of get away with it a lot when you're younger. And, yeah, as you say, there's a whole lot of social pressures and the whole body stuff going on as well. So it makes it sort of even harder to think. But also that self-awareness kicks in. And so you start looking at yourself in a way you don't when you're younger. And there hasn't been a lot of really kind, positive portrayals of people with autism. So the kids are left quite high and dry sometimes. So often I get a lot of kids that they choose to come and see me, and they just go, oh, thank God you actually understand what I'm talking about. And then when I tell them what I'm doing, they go, oh, yeah, that I can do, because that actually is in sync with what I think about myself. And they get self-mastery on how to kind of look after their nervous system and strengthen it, that isn't about trying to fit in or trying to be a proper person, et cetera, which is a lot of what the other therapies do. They're very much about normalizing people, and that's not really the point.
Funny, I was going to ask you that about this talk. Is it for parents of children with autism or people dealing with adults with autism, or is it for people, is it broader than that? Is it also for people with autism?
Oh, very definitely. I love people with autism coming. I actually consider myself on the spectrum. So I get really happy when people come and their eyes start shining because you start talking their language. So it's for teachers, it's for EAs, people who are helping people on the spectrum, and parents and professionals. I teach a lot of therapists and psychologists who are interested in more body psychology, but very much as long as people can sit in a space for a couple of days, we always make sure there's some places they can escape to and they can come and go. But yes, they're very, very welcome.
People hoping to attend the talk in Cork next month, Holly, do they have to have any preparation done in advance?
Not at all. It's very gentle and simple. What I think one of my best skills is making everything really easy. So the book I wrote, Reframe Your Thinking Around Autism, can be a really highly complex thing about physiology and the nervous system and the brain, but I just do the Dr. Zeus version. So I do stick figures and I make it really easy because essentially it is really easy. And then people find they get such an affinity with it. As I said, they just say, oh my God, that makes so much sense. And then you can work with it. It's not that hard. So no, they don't have to have a 4-year uni degree to be able to come. It's very accessible.
And for people who can't make the talk or who won't be able to access tickets, where can they hear more about your teachings and your way of coping?
So if they want to get a little look at what I do, they can Google Holly Bridges YouTube, and that has a lot of testimonials from adults and parents of kids on the spectrum that have worked with me. I also have a website, www.zebr.co, zebra without the A, and that has quite a bit of information about my work as well. And then people are very welcome to contact me via email or Facebook. There's Facebook and Twitter pages as well.
And just in relation to Cork itself, is it like any other area that you've been to in terms of the attention that's being put on autism?
I think it's just starting in Cork. So you've just had a massive adult autism event last weekend that was run by a lady on the spectrum, and they had all adult autist speakers, which is really cool and very different. So I think Ireland and Cork is a lovely fresh place for people to start a really invigorated talk about it. And I think there are a lot of really interested people. There certainly were when I came last year. And people are really, really interested in exploring more because we've had 100 or so years of some pretty steadfast evidence-based practice kind of thing, but it's not what people want. And so, the parents are often very well educated. They want to know more. They want to explore more. And certainly as people get older, as kids on the spectrum do, they need more than what's on offer with the traditional therapies.